Well, I've been to North Wales quite a few times in the past, but I've never got over to Anglesey, not at least to do any photography. So I thought I'd make a special day on this visit to get over here and explore the island. So the aim today is to shoot the 3 main lighthouses on the island. I haven't had very good weather this trip to North Wales. It's been a lot of cloud around, and I think I'm going to get most of that today, although the sun is trying to break through this morning, but I'm looking at probably a mostly cloudy, overcast day, and so I'm going to have to work with those conditions. So I'm starting off here at Penmon, which is on the east side of the island. The tide's just starting to come in, mainly overcast skies, as I say. Let's see just what we can capture here. Well, the actual shots I do from here, I think are actually going to benefit from the tide being a little bit higher. There's a lot of dark coloured rocks down where the shore is at the moment, and they don't look very good, and the lighter ones are slightly up the beach. So it's probably going to be another hour before I get those perfect shots with the water. But whilst I wait, I've come up the beach where you've got a bit more of the multicoloured pebbles and some of the lighter rocks. And so what I'm doing is getting a very low angle in front of one of the main boulders here, so I can kind of hide that darker mid-ground and fill the foreground with the lighter rocks, and that's the complement with the lighthouse. And I'm shooting now because it's got some really nice cloud above the lighthouse, looking really dark and menacing. Even though we've lost that sun, there's a nice dramatic cloud above the lighthouse, and that's looking really good. So it's definitely a shot worth doing here whilst I wait around for that tide to come in a bit more. Now, one thing I am doing here when I'm composing this shot with this rock in the foreground is giving it a little bit of breathing space. And what I mean by that is not letting it touch the left or right side of the frame. I'm just allowing a little bit of edging around it, a little bit of breathing space, so it's composed within the frame, not touching the edges. And this is something I always tell people who come on my workshops, etc. If you're going to include a foreground subject, even if it's on the left or the right side of the frame only, make sure it's in the frame, make sure it's not touching the frame as if it's an afterthought, make sure it's something you've included in the shot, give it that breathing space, and it's going to create a much more balanced composition when you do that. Now I've moved around to the other side of the beach now, the other side of the lighthouse. There's a bit more of a shingle beach over here. Of course I could have set up the video camera and filmed myself walking over here for you, but you get the idea. So I've come over here because we've got this really nice moody sky that's now still coming in from the right. There's less moody over there to my left, so I'm wanting to look the back that way to get that nice moody sky. But now I can come down to the water's edge and capture some movement there. So I'm using a 2-stop medium grad on the sky because I want to capture the moodiness. The hard grad was a bit too hard, soft grad not quite hard enough, medium grad just right. Goldilocks or something there. And I'm also using a 10-stop ND because I want to slow down the exposure. I want to capture some movement in the waves. So I want to exposure around 2 seconds or so, 3 seconds. I'm just varying the shots, just seeing how much movement and blur I get in those waves. Don't want too much. I want it just right. It sounds like Goldilocks again, isn't it? Not too much, not too less. Just a bit in the middle would be just right. These are one of the new IR NDs from Leech filters, the more neutral filters. I'm just testing these out, and I'll be doing a video of those, comparing them with the big stoppers. But it's going to give me a much more neutral shot for this exposure. But anyway, with that sky, the moody sky, great view of the lighthouse, movement in the water. This is looking like a good shot here. So I've come back round to the other side of the beach now, the other side of the lighthouse, and now that the tide has come in, I'm getting more waves crashing over these lighter coloured rocks, and it's looking a much better scene from over here. So I've just set up where I'm seeing the water filter in through the little channels between the rocks. That's making nice foregrounds So you've got the nice hard rock and the softer water. And yes, I'm using an ND filter, 10 stop, to blur the water. Makes it a little bit of a cliche, but sometimes cliches just seem to work, so I'm happy to do that here. Now the thing to think about here is getting that right balance between rock and surf. If you don't have enough rock, the water can look too smooth and it looks a bit too empty in the open water. If you have too much rock and not enough surf, it looks a bit drab. Too much rock hanging around, not enough surf moving around it. So you've got to move back and forth, watch the waves coming in, how far they're moving in, and again vary your shutter speeds. You can try different shutter speeds. I've been using around 4 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds. Depending how much surf comes in, depends how much softness you get in, and there's a nice balance in between there. So it's worth experimenting, so try different variations, move around, get your different viewpoints, and just get a number of shots, and you should get one that's just about the right balance. A couple of bits of advice when shooting at the coast I find useful. First of all, always have your bag behind you nearest the beach. If you have it in front of you near the water, there's bound to be a rogue wave come in and drench the bag. Always put your camera away when moving from rock to rock. Never carry it on the tripod, especially with the filter system on there. You're bound to slip and you know what that will end up in. Also, when you move from rock to rock, if you use a manual focus like I do, always refocus. Never think the focus hasn't changed, because you're bound to knock the camera or the ring on the focus on the lens. So I always refocus once I've moved even just a small area. And lastly, put some water, some fresh water over your filters, get that salty sea water off there, and you get your filters lovely and clean again without scratching. Well, I've come over to the northwest side of the island now, over to South Stack Lighthouse. Now this is a lighthouse that I really wanted to do later in the day, but it's a case of not being able to be in two places at once. So the reason for coming here now is because I've got the time, it's around midday, but also because there's the high tide. So I'm guessing this lighthouse probably looks better at high tide. I don't know how much sea comes in around it here, whereas later in the evening it'll be back to low tide. But you probably would have the afterglow and a darkness in the sky, and the light would show up more, which is the kind of shot I really wanted to get here. So if I get a chance, I will return later, but whether I'll get a chance or not. So I thought I'd at least get one shot from here. So I've come down the cliff as much as I can without getting too close to the edge. I want to see a lot of the sea around the actual cliffs surrounding the lighthouse. So I'm doing it with a long exposure, few seconds, again just to add the softness to the water. It just gives that image and the view a little bit of a lift. I haven't quite got the moody sky that I had at the other lighthouse, which is something else I wanted to bring into this shot, just to give it that something a bit extra. Now it's just around midday, but I'm just trying to work with what I've got here. I'll filter that sky, get as much moodiness back into it as possible, and if I get a chance to return here, I may get that perfect shot I want this evening, but we'll have to see how it goes. It is a beautiful spot though. Third and final lighthouse of the day. Well, this is all rather nice, isn't it? Well, I've walked the 2 miles or so from the car park to my final lighthouse, which is Llandinwen Island Lighthouse. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'll put the text down once I find out exactly. Yeah, this is a classic shot. The one everybody does, the view from here with the rock on the left and the steps leading up to the lighthouse, top of the frame, and you've got those wonderful mountains of North Wales in the background there. Now, all we need is the light, and we may just get it. There were some breaks in the cloud on the horizon there out to the west. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be consistently cloudy today, but we may get a bit of sun coming through, which would be good, and I can get the shot here. I think the sun's setting slightly towards the south because it's late in the year now rather than towards the north, so it's probably not the best angle, but if the sun does come out, I think I'd get something. If not, and I was almost planning that I wasn't going to get it, I'm going to try and look for something different rather than this classic view that everybody gets. I'd like to get my own version, or a different version at least, especially if I don't have the sun and I've got to try and make this shot work in different ways. So I'm going to have a look around and see if I can get a different version, put my own stamp on it, which is something I like to do wherever I go. So I've done some variations using this rock here, some even handheld, but with that sun looking very unlikely to appear, I'm going to have a look around and see if I can find some other views. Well, aside from the lighthouse, I'd say my favourite other subject within the view is those mountains. So I've actually come around the side of the lighthouse and I found all these really nice jagged rocks, and I'm composing some little squares with these in the foreground and those wonderful mountains in the background. Well, as I thought, I'm not going to have time to go back to South Stack Lighthouse. That's going to have to wait for another occasion to get on the ideal conditions in an evening. But I've had a good afternoon here. I've got some good shots. Haven't had the light, but not to worry. I'm sure I'll be back. Well, that just leaves me to say thank you to E6 Subscriptions for sponsoring this video. E6, your all-in-one subscription for photographers, which is videos, e-guides, e-books, image reviews, and more. So it just leaves me to say thanks for watching, goodbye to you, and goodbye to North Wales. Goodbye.